What was the process of winning an Emmy?
When I got up on stage, the first thing I said is, I'm a YouTuber.
How do you come up with ideas for your videos that get millions of views?
Step number one is,
for people who aren't married to their business partner, how do you find someone to do this?
Oh man, we have like 16 full-time employees.
What's a monthly overhead?
Over $100,000.
Did you guys sell your blood to buy your first camera?
You did your research.
yeah, some context is needed.
Is there a partnership that you said no to because it would have been a conflict of interest?
The fact that I crossed that line to begin with is on me, and I take responsibility for it.
I think it's the first time you guys have talked about that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Palms are sweaty.
You're very good at what you do.
Before we get into it, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell because we have another video coming out with Johnny Harris where he breaks down his biggest video ever that got 12 million views. He goes through it frame by frame. It's one of the most insightful things I think I've heard. Plus, you're not going to want to miss our other interviews and studio tours coming out because we've got so much good stuff. And guys, I see the stats. 97% of you who watch this show don't even subscribe. 97%. And just hitting that little subscribe button and ringing the bell goes a long way to helping us land guests and make even bigger videos for you. All right, now back to it. Johnny, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Glad to be here.
I got to say, I don't think there's a YouTuber who has impacted the way I prep for interviews more than you. I look at...
That's a compliment, I have to say.
No, I mean, I see the research you put into explainers. I'm like, for interviews, I just try to bring the same level of prep. So it's...
I appreciate it. It is the bread and butter of what we do, is obsess about the story beforehand. Everything you see on screen is just so much work in pre-pro.
I have a lot of questions about that and getting to the process, but I have to start out by sharing this because these are a few of your videos that I think you're so good at posing questions that I didn't even know I had and then suddenly wanted to find the answer to.
Yep.
Everything from like, why is American breakfast dessert? Or like, why is like, using shampoo every day, like, a lie? Like, so how do you come up with ideas for your videos that get millions of views?
There's a willingness for me to say, these are stupid questions that people would be like, oh, I'm embarrassed to ask this. But I'm like, let's not be embarrassed. Let's just ask it. Why do we shampoo every day? That's kind of a scary question. Like, I don't like American breakfast. Like, I'm just going to kind of say it out loud. And I think people appreciate the sense of like, I'm just going to ask these questions, even though they might not be what normal journalists are asking.
I mean, even though the topics change, I think the process seems to be the same. You once said, the number one mistake that people make in video is not being a visual first storyteller. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but if there's a million good stories that should be reported in the world, you said my philosophy is that only about 900 should be told in video form. The rest should be text, articles, etc. Yeah. How do you pick the ideas that should be videos?
So for me, and this is something I learned at Vox, this idea of visual first writing, visual first storytelling. And I find that a lot of video makers will kind of put imagery next to their words and kind of say, well, that's video. For us, we want the words and the imagery to dance perfectly together. We want that to be an immersive experience. And so not all stories have that. Not all stories have a visual that when you see the visual, you immediately understand the important aspects of the story. You understand the tension. What I love is finding a visual that anyone, regardless of how informed they are on the topic, the moment they see it, they can tell that something's up, something's happening here, and I want to know more. So that happens to be a filter for us when we're looking for stories. When I'm curious about something, if I can think of a visual that helps explain it, that is like the kind of green light that I feel kind of in my gut.
To get specific, are there a few examples of visual anchors from past videos that you could call out?
So a few years ago when I was at Vox, I was doing a series called Borders, and I wanted to focus on the border between Colombia and Venezuela, where there was this massive migration crisis happening. And most outlets were going there and sort of filming just people coming across the border, right? And it's like, that's a visual anchor in and of itself, just people flooding across the border from Venezuela. When I got to the town where that was happening, I definitely went and filmed that. But then I looked around and said, like, what else is happening here? And there were a couple visual anchors that were just hiding in plain sight that no one else was covering. One of them was, there was a vendor on the side of the street who was making sculptures out of money, out of currency, Venezuelan bolivars that were now worth nothing because of the hyperinflation crisis. He was taking that and using it as a raw material to make baskets and like swan sculptures and all this stuff that ended up being like this beautiful art, but it was so symbolic. You don't have to know anything about macroeconomics, about the geopolitics of South America to see that something's going on here. This guy's using money to make sculptures. And so that was a visual anchor. A few blocks away, there was a woman who had just come over from Venezuela, and she was selling her hair. She was cutting her hair, giving it to this like middleman who was then selling it to people making wigs. And so there, you just saw these human moments that I put in the intro to say, hey, there's something bigger going on here. Yes, it has to do with economics. Yes, it has to do with geopolitics. But you can see the tension just by looking at these visual anchors. That to me is the best use of video to bring somebody in and really hook them into a topic that maybe they wouldn't look at otherwise.
Are there pieces of advice or tips to find visual anchors to make for a good video that don't require travel?
Absolutely. Sometimes a visual anchor is actually a piece of data. We're doing a video right now called Why You're So Tired. The visual anchor for that video is actually the Google Trends graph that for the search, why am I so tired? And if you look at that trend over the search trend over the last 10 years, you see this just uptick. People are asking that question more and more. Yeah. You don't need to know anything about that topic to see that graph and say it's going up. Yeah. You can immediately capture. So in that sense, it's a data point. Other visual anchors sometimes are a document. Like sometimes we go back into CIA declassified documents and we'll find one moment where George Bush and Dick Cheney are having a secret meeting and it got leaked, and we just show a conversation between these two people, and you don't need to know any context to see something's up here. So visual anchors hide in a lot of different forms. There's no sort of secret sauce to finding them. I'm just always on the lookout for that little hook, that little thing that if someone sees it, they'll be brought into the story in a more immersive way.
We have your Emmy Award behind us.
Wow.
Just casually
nice. Sneaky.
Yeah. So many creators are trying to do more than just YouTube in terms of elevating, their storytelling, their brand. What was the process of winning an Emmy? I mean, I feel like you raised the bar for all of us by bringing that home. I felt it was like a hometown win, like a YouTuber brought home an Emmy. What was that process? What did you win for? Give people context for those who may not know.
So I've had a long relationship with the New York Times video team. Yeah. I almost worked for them multiple times when I was at Vox, but I stuck at Vox. When I jumped ship and went independent in 2019, I called them up and I was like, hey, I'm free now. Like I don't want to come work full time, but like let's do a project together. And so together with Adam Ellick, who's the head of opinion video at the Times, we developed a format that's kind of Johnny, the curious explainer journalist, taps into the deep knowledge of one of the Times like veteran reporters, like Nick Kristof or Binya Applebaum, these people who have been reporting on one topic for 30 years. And I become the translator of helping their story be turned into, a visual explanation. And that's been a really cool format. We've done 3 videos now. One of them won an Emmy, the one I did with Binya about liberal hypocrisy, kind of looking at some of these blue states and scrutinizing some of the policies there. And it was not much different than what I normally do. I approached it with the same curiosity, the same desire to have really nice visual anchors. The difference is that the rigor and the expertise of Binya Applebaum, this veteran reporter, helped really, I think, elevate the rigor. And it had the New York Times on it. I think that's actually the biggest difference. I frankly think like the things like the Emmys and a lot of these old institutions still see those names, those brand names, as the gatekeepers of good journalism. I don't think that piece is frankly any more rigorous than what we do on the channel under the Johnny Harris name. But because it had that stamp of the New York Times and it had, Binya again, like as an expert, I think it caught the eye of the Emmys, and we won. And when I got up on stage, the first thing I said is, I'm a YouTuber. I wanted people to know that like, I'm not of this world, but I respect this world. There's a lot to learn from this world of sort of legacy TV and doc. But I'm in a new world with a different language and a different set of norms, and I'm proud of that. I think a lot of people still have a condescending like kind of tone towards YouTubers that's changing very quickly, and I hope stuff like this moves that forward.
Yeah. Do you have advice for YouTubers who want to pitch or work with traditional media or big publications that can't quite get in the door?
Yeah. I would say defining your own voice first is key. These institutions I deeply appreciate. They are very rigorous. It's a shame that they are struggling. A lot of these institutions are struggling to evolve into this new world. But it's hard. One of the reasons they're struggling is it's hard to develop that voice inside of the institution, which is one thing that was so great about Vox. Vox was an institution, but it allowed me to develop my own voice. It's hard to do that in a 100-year-old news outlet. So I would say, if you want to get in the door, develop your own voice in the wild west of the internet, and then come and pitch them your style and your approach. That's going to be much more compelling than coming in with just an idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really think the incubator for the next sort of cohort of journalists is going to be on the front lines of YouTube.
You mentioned a lot about what you learned at Vox, and any other lessons from your time there. Any advice for people who are trying to prepare before they take a jump to become a creator? I feel like so much what you did there has prepared you for what you're doing now.
Absolutely. Vox was an incubator for me to learn the craft of journalism in an environment that really celebrated individual voices. And I thrived in that environment. I think one thing that is my advice, though, is what happened before Vox. I moved out to DC with an international relations degree and a deep interest in animation and film, but not a lot of contacts and not a lot of like direction. And so my first couple of jobs were just at jobs that had nothing to do with international affairs, but they allowed me to get my hands on the tools every day and refine my craft as an animator and as a storyteller. And they weren't sexy jobs, but they got me good at what I ended up doing later. So I wouldn't have had my job at Vox had I not spent a couple of years just getting good at the craft.
Yep.
And I think that that's step number one. A lot of people, their first impulse is to go to school. Say like, I want to learn this, I'm going to go to school. My advice is, instead of that, go find a job that allows you to get reps, whether it's writing, articles, or whether it's animating or editing or filming or whatever it is. Me shooting weddings on weekends and working as an animator at some government agency that was my schooling. That's where I learned it. And then I was ready when Vox was born. So that's actually a much easier approach, and you get paid to do it. Do the job that's going to give you the reps and pay you to do it.
Yeah. And I think one other thing I saw you did, because maybe getting a job may be overwhelming for some people, it's like, you could create your own opportunity by cold emailing an organization. I saw you did this earlier.
Yes, absolutely.
You cold emailed an organization like, hey, this video you made, this is not your order, but it's like, it sucks. Like, here's a few ways that I can make it better. Can I redo this video for you?
Yeah.
That must have given you a lot more reps too.
Absolutely. That idea of committing yourself to a project that you're not quite ready for, but that you're going to do for somebody. I call this excited accountability. It's this idea that you're now accountable to somebody, but you're kind of excited because you get to do the thing that you like. You might be doing it for free, but now it sort of levels you up in a way that, like, I'm going to work on a passion project on the side and there's no one I'm standing accountable to. And I see this a lot with artists who want to just sort of cultivate something on the side, and they do it for years, but they don't have a deliverable and a deadline and any kind of scrutiny. The idea of forcing yourself to turn stuff in, that's how you close that gap between like where you want to be and where you are. And I did that over and over and over again. It wasn't fun and I wasn't sure where it was going, but that was my boot camp. And everything that happened after is a result of those reps.
Yeah. I think that I look at it the same way. I think the most powerful forces in learning are having a deadline and having an audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And sometimes those can be the same thing eventually. But at first the audience could just be, for me, it was like the State Department. I was like, let me remake your video. And they were like, sure, remake my video for free, and that was my audience. That was my deadline. I didn't get paid anything, but I did it and I learned a lot.
Another thing you do that quote unquote normal journalists don't do as much is I feel like the way you write is very different. You had this quote that really stuck out to me. You said that good writing is rare and beautiful. The difference between someone really connecting and not connecting with the story is just a few words.
Yeah.
I bought a book that you said was one of your favorite books.
Yep.
And I read it, Sense of Style by Steven Pinker.
Yes.
This cartoon stood out.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you could just describe what's going on here real quick.
there's this this amazing moment. Good start needs more gibberish. This idea of like the authority coming in and being like, this is great what you're writing, but it's too simple. It needs more words that signals that it's rigorous. I feel like that is one of the curses of communication today, is that people who are communicating about serious topics feel like in order for it to be taken seriously, it needs to contain highbrow conceptual language. And ironically, that is the language that feels good for the writer, the communicator. It feels good to write big words. But it doesn't actually serve the audience. And the way that my old boss, Ezra Klein, who started Vox, used to say is he used to talk about it as traditional journalism and academia and legal and all these types of like professions are often communicating for their peers. They're not communicating for their audience. They want the journalist at the other news outlet to take you seriously. And I believe that the audience doesn't want that. They don't need that. They want rigor. They want to be taken seriously in terms of like, you know, leveling with the kind of intelligence of the viewer. But they don't need the conceptual words most of the time. Good writing is often visual. It's often plain. It's often very clear, and it's often concrete. A lot of our language can be kind of blobby and conceptual. I believe in making stuff concrete, stuff that you can see. I often talk to my writers or research producers, and I say, who did what to whom? Like they'll say like, oh, the sanctions, like we have sanctions and sanctions. And I'm like, but who did what to whom? And sanctions is the best example of this, because I didn't even know what sanctions really meant until like I was done with grad school in international relations. Yeah. I finally was like, what are sanctions? Sanctions are when the government makes a list of all the people that can't travel somewhere or can't sell things. That's what it is. It's just a list. And the moment I saw, oh, they put the name on the list, that unlocked it for me. And that's what I tell the audience instead of hiding behind the concepts.
Yeah, I was talking to MKBHD about this, as well as Cleo, and I referenced a study from J Alta where the grade level of the writing and the speaking, a lot of top YouTubers are around 5th to 8th grade reading level. And I think like people say, oh, it may be dumbing it down, but I think it's distilling.
Yeah.
You know? And I think honestly, like the word journalist may be intimidating for a lot of creators and YouTubers. So I'm wondering, do you have any tips for a creator who may not consider themselves a writer to get better at writing before they turn on the camera, if it's bullet point script, whatever it may be?
Totally. I think step number one is seeking deep understanding. That's step number one. Is I think a lot of people get to an 80% level of understanding a concept or an idea, and they feel content because they can regurgitate the words. And our education system kind of trains us in this way. Learn the concepts so that you can say the right things at the right time to perform on this test, and you'll get an A. And what it doesn't incentivize is a deep, in your bones understanding of this thing. And I think for me, I had a really hard time in school because I couldn't really do that. I couldn't really just sort of memorize the concepts. I wanted a deep understanding. If I didn't have it, it wouldn't sort of sink in. And so a lot of what I do for writing is I seek a deep understanding, and then I communicate it back to myself before I understood it. I'm really trying to empathize with my earlier self. Yeah. And there's this moment in every piece when I can tell I'm starting to develop that curse of knowledge. I now understand it, and it's going to be really hard for me to explain it. And so right as I'm on that threshold, I actually take a moment to write down what it felt like to not understand it. What was I curious about? What did I not understand about this topic? And then I make sure that as I'm writing my script, I'm in touch with that person, because that's the audience. That's the audience. That empathy for that person who doesn't fully understand this kind of difficult topic is my audience, and it was me just a while ago. Yeah. And that kind of empathy is I think really important, more than the actual words and the style and the grammar. It is a deep understanding of what it's like to not understand, and a deep desire for that audience to understand. And it's a very delicate craft. But to me, it's more important than animation and video editing and music and all the other things we do. It's that subtle communication style.
Yeah, I mean, we do the same thing on our team, whether it's a topic for a video or for our newsletter. If somebody's pitching, we're like, okay, send me a voice note first.
Yeah. Yes.
Just explain it back in a voice note like you would to me as a friend, or I try to do the same with them. We're like, what's our one-line take?
Yes,
just to
exactly.
simplify it.
Yeah, and a headline can sometimes do this. We've started really pushing pitches that have a headline first. If you can distill it down into what the promise of the piece is and what you're promising you're going to explain into a headline and even a thumbnail, not only is that better for preparing for the platform that we publish on, but it's also an exercise in disciplining yourself to say, what am I actually saying here?
Yeah.
Instead of hiding behind a bunch of bullet points. That's the easier choice, but a real distillation can be summarized in very few words.
Yeah, that's a perfect transition because your team was kind enough to give me a doc for one of your videos, The Problem with Elon Musk, which I think has 3 million views now.
Yeah.
I was already impressed with the video, but this doc is 188 pages long. Is that, first of all, before we talk about it, is that normal?
Yeah.
For you do weekly videos and 188 pages of research go into them.
Yeah. It's 8 weeks of nonstop reporting, sometimes more, and I want every stone unturned. And this doesn't include the fact that I read a couple biographies of Musk. I listened to them while my research producer was also doing their research. I want to come to the table with every stone unturned, and that just there's no shortcutting that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Talk me through, we'll show this on screen. What are we looking at here? What goes into the doc? And I also have the template of what goes into every video, but I thought it'd be helpful just to get specific and talk about one.
A YouTube video is a lot of things. It's obviously the body of a story, but it's also packaging. It's also a description. It's also a lot of copy and sort of marketing. So a lot of this stuff is just, what are we saying to our patrons? What are our keywords for SEO?
And this is done ahead of time,
This
Johnny?
is done throughout the process. Sometimes if we have our titles kind of very clear, we'll do a lot of that beforehand, but we'll do 10 different titles that we think this has. We'll do thumbnail direction. Sometimes that's not fully baked because we don't have the concept, baked before all the research. So a lot of this is just prep and kind of video information.
How many people typically work on a video on average?
It could be anywhere from 4 to 10. If it's a field video and there's local producers or local cinematographers that help out. But baseline in-house, it's maybe 4 to 6 people between all steps, not to mention operations, et cetera.
I want to dig into how you've hired, scale. We'll bring in, is here your business partner,
Absolutely.
wife.
That's a whole, the operations is a whole other magic that I benefit from, but do not drive. Art ingredients is a key one. Art ingredients, which is a little leaner for this one because it wasn't as visually diverse. This was a more straightforward visual story because it was a lot of talking head. But normally, art ingredients is every aspect of the video. As I'm writing, I am putting inspiration reference frames. I'm putting screenshots and screen recordings of inspiration that I want to go into the animation style. One of the inefficient but lovely things that we do is that we make a new art direction for every video.
Because I also saw your team gave another doc of I think it was the Japanese islands video. Yeah. It had a ton of visual reference. But I was there's no, you guys almost come up with a new mood board.
A new mood board for every single video, which is, I don't recommend, but I love it. It's so fun because for me as a creative visual storyteller, I want every video to be a new vision. And it's laborious, but I think it creates an eclectic catalog of stories that people appreciate. So for every video, we have this art ingredients that kind of has how we treat archive, what the map's going to look like, what our typography is going to look like. And we have an amazing visual producer who helps sort of bring all of that together. And then the on-cam, what's the set going to look like? How are we going to light it? What's the background? Do we have, practical props, et cetera?
Oh, wow. So even though you're doing the talking head, speaking to camera,
set every time.
And that has to do with the style of
Totally. If you see Elon Musk, it's got kind of a cooler tone. It's sort of inspired by the minimal branding of X, the Elon takeover, and it's kind of got this cooler thing, which is very different than our cozy map style. You'll see a very subtle but intentional art direction that pervades the entire video. Again, don't recommend it, but I love it. It's so fun for me to be every single video is a new adventure.
We'll get right back to it, but first I want to thank our sponsor, InVideo AI. You might have heard about them already, but they just gave me early access to their new InVideo AI V3, and it's pretty amazing what it could do. The biggest change is that they've added a brand new generative video engine, and with a single prompt, you can create some amazing videos like this Breaking Bad trailer in the style of the Lego movie, literally with a single prompt. Or make me a video about the 10 most incredible wonders of India and its history. Or you could ask it to make me a 30-second video about how the Hangover movie would look like in the style of Lord of the Rings. Just giving you a few ideas to show how far this tool can go. And beyond just generating single clips, InVideo AI can generate the entire video itself. I'm talking about B-roll, music, voiceover, subtitles, all edited and ready to post. And you could prompt InVideo with a finalized script or give it a few bullet points. You can even train an AI voice on yourself so it sounds like you narrated the video. Plus, InVideo AI has support for over 10 languages, so you can translate your content for a global audience. To be one of the first to access InVideo AI V3, head to this link below or click the link in the description or use this code to get twice the amount of free credits for InVideo V2, which is currently out. All right, now back to the video.
So like when I'm writing in one column and I'm directing in another column, and that direction has a specific color code for animation. It's purple. And so I actually have macros where if I want to direct in animation, I will hit a hotkey and it will reformat to purple and I'll start writing. Like when I'm writing a script, and this is what you dive into this 2-column script, I am coding effectively. Yes, I'm saying words, but then in the right column, I'm coding. We need archive of Musk as an 8-year-old. We need archive of Musk doing da-da-da-da-da-da. We need a logo of SpaceX that composites with this thing, and I'm putting that in a different color. We need a studio shot, which I put in a different color, of this. So the script turns into this rainbow of colors that is the kind of marching orders for everyone on the team. And it's also me editing. I don't edit anymore. This is my editing in animation. I'm able to do it in words with hyper-specific direction, which is what you see. So that's what the script is. It's a lot of very, very clear direction and specific archive that we're going to use and things like that.
And take me to the front of this script for the Elon Musk video. Like, how did you choose which visual anchors were the visual hooks that you put in the beginning?
Yeah. So with this one, a lot of the sort of visual anchors for this one, because it is a biography commentary on this guy, are moments with him, moments of him saying something, sound bites basically. So there's this moment, it was a composite between 2 different podcasts or conversations, one with Lex Fridman and one with a New York Times interview, where he says, "My mind is a storm. My mind is a storm." And it's this really sort of introspective moment where it's like, no matter what you feel about Musk, here he is turning inward, having this kind of emotional moment. And then the question is it a happy storm? And he says, no. And he says, I don't think people would want to live inside my mind.
I mean, my mind is a storm. I don't think most people would want to be me. They may think they would want to be me, but they don't know.
Is your storm a happy storm?
No.
And it's like, and like that moment, honestly, it made it, and I even feel it right now, like that's a compelling moment where it's like, here's this divisive guy, but we're going to put that aside for a second. And no matter what you think of him, you can hear that moment and be like, oh, there's something more going on inside this guy's mind. And I wanted to use that as my first visual anchor or hook in this case to signal to the viewer, hey, I'm going to do something nuanced here. I'm not doing a piece of propaganda for one side or the other. I'm going to give the full story. And it's a 40-minute video, so I really needed something juicy up front. And we went through probably 10 different sound bites on what we were going to put, and we decided on that one because it really had the flavor that I felt was like compelling.
I think not enough is said about picking the right clips to put into the beginning of your video, because I mean, I like to be a journalist and to go out in the field can get intimidating, but to go through a bunch of source material and then piece together the best stuff. I mean, you do it great. The other creators like Dodford, I don't know if you've seen his stuff. He's an amazing documentary creator. He pieces together different interviews like in the same style that you mentioned for the Elon Musk video. It's just, I don't know, I find with YouTube being such a, just, I don't know, one of the best places to find inspiration. You could do that more than ever.
And I'll say this is different than my normal style. This is more documentary style of like, let the subject talk. What I usually do for a visual hook is I say, look at this thing. And that's I say like, look at this fence, look at this border zone, look at this graph. And that's a way to bring someone into a visual where I'm, with my voiceover, kind of guiding them through a visual anchor.
Yep.
Having the visual anchor be like a quote from a subject is more traditional documentary. It's something I want to do more of. But I would say that I'm usually engineering those with voiceover.
Yeah.
So the script is divided into 2 columns. The left column is all the words that I'm going to say, all the words you're going to hear, which to me is like an important part, but the right column is where the magic happens. The right column is all of the visuals that you're going to see. And I really try to keep the left column, I try to keep them very short little sentences. Here's a sentence, and what's the visual that we're going to show during this one sentence? The next sentence, what's the visual? And when I'm writing, I'm in both. I'm going back and forth because it's this discipline of I'm not going to say something unless I have a visual that can dance with what I'm saying. Because that's where the video format becomes so much more immersive and people want to stick around.
Yeah.
So throughout this whole thing, I'm laboring over. I even will put in the music cues. I'll say after I say this line, a music cue happens. It's this kind of music. We have an in-house composer. We work on those music cues on paper before it even goes into the edit, and it's effectively the edit that I can visualize on paper before it ever gets filmed.
How do you think about sound design and music? Because I think the way you bring it in is just, it amplifies like what you're talking about. How do you think about that?
So it's an incredibly important ingredient for me. It always has been. Back before I had a composer, I would just listen and listen and listen to any of the sound banks that I had access to while I was writing. And I would try to feel out the tone. I think of music as 2 main buckets. One is thinky music. It is more cerebral. It's more we're in a explainer mode. And then I think of feely music, thinky and feely. And there's a lot of like subcategories within that. That if you look at our music sort of back end catalog, it's got all these weird words.
What are some of the subcategories?
Like we'll have like effed up twisted vibes, and then it's like we have like Putin vibes is one actually, where it's like if we're talking about Vladimir Putin, there's like a very specific tone, and then it's like we have like grand epic journey or something. We have drum solo energy, which is a big one, where it's like if it's just kind of like neutral music and it's just really percussive. I like to edit against drums. I'm a drummer. That's my instrument, and so like I love to edit against good percussion. And so we have a ton of just really nice percussion, and my composer Tom is also a drummer, and so we just like nerd out about like rhythmic stuff. So there's just music to me, and I try to sweet and salty. I try to do feely music for a little bit, and then it goes into thinky, and I write with that tone. I say we've been 4 minutes into this thinky section. Let's get to a more emotional moment, and then let's get back to it. And that kind of ebb and flow helps structure the piece for me and helps sort of give people a palate cleanser between sections.
Yeah, I think categorizing music before you need it is so important.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like we do it for our intros too.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Like just thinking about like, okay, is this going to be more of a suspenseful thing or a more lighthearted thing? And the music selection for that is totally different.
Yeah, it's so important. We use a platform called Disco where Tom will upload all of his music. We have maybe 2,500 or even 3,000 tracks now, and they're all metadata tagged. They're all keyworded and in playlists, and I'll just listen to that stuff as I write because it's sort of my guide for tone.
Do you find that you match feeling music with visual anchors and thinky music with like you speaking to camera?
I would say it's close to that. I would say visual anchors in the field that have human moments are often much more feely, and I feel like feely music is dangerous. It's like a drug, and I don't want to abuse it because you can easily layer on this like cinematic string symphony thing that really pulls at your heartstrings. But if you haven't earned it, it then is tacky and bad, and it's like that's our cardinal sin. So I always say we've earned a really big feely moment here because we've set up the context of this conflict and this war, and now we're talking about the people. Now we can actually layer on a feely moment, and it won't be abusive. It'll be actually like proper and appropriate. So we've earned it. So I'm it's very much like a human moment that like you actually should be feeling. And then it's for thinking music, it's not really on camera. It's much more when I'm explaining something that's more conceptual. If I'm doing a quick history of something, or if I'm explaining the mechanics of how international law works or something like that, that's less human and more cerebral. There'll be kind of like some like marimba music that's like much more thinky and neutral. And then there's a spectrum between them. It's much more intuitive than just those two buckets, but like I do want to make sure that I'm never using music in a heavy way that is overdone.
Yeah. I think how you match it is so important. I also want to talk about your creative process for shorts. I have a script for a few of your shorts that you recently put out. I was really amazed that you're scripting out shorts along with the main video, like the long form video. What's the process of creating a Johnny Harris short?
So one of our approaches is, hey, we've just done 180 pages of research. Yeah. Let's turn that into a short, and we'll leverage some of the visuals from the video. And that's what you see in the scripts. And that's much more finding one nugget of the video and trying to use the visual from that, and then just writing a really pared down version. I think the better version of our shorts are concepts that were built for shorts. And this is a sort of new thinking. Again, we're sort of in this new wild west of what is short form for our style. And it's, I think, having a key visual or a visual anchor that's the whole that's the whole short. 30 seconds on just this one thing. I think Cleo does this really well. Cleo Abram is someone who's very fluent in the shorts format and will find a cool animated thing that maybe she used for another video, but she'll write an entire custom short that really celebrates that one visual and serves the audience in that way. So we're still figuring this out, but I think that a good short form is the same concept, a visual anchor. It's one thing that you can look at and understand, and that's it. You're not trying to pack in a whole micro story, which that was our original thinking. Just summarize the story. I don't think that works. I think it's one thing, teach them one thing, and then they're going to swipe and move on to something else.
Yeah. During my interview with Cleo, she talked about, you use the word visual anchors. She uses key visuals. Same thing. Or similar.
Yeah.
But I think being able to like ask yourself, am I saying, take a look at this?
Yes.
Or if you're in a conversation or brainstorming meeting and you pull out your phone, it's like, hey, did you see this?
Absolutely.
Those are good tests to make a short.
Yeah.
And if there's enough, correct me if I'm wrong, that's a good test to make a long form.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you have a few of those anchors that you can stitch together, then you have an arc that you can start to tell a story around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to ask how you do this process week over week over week. And for that, I want to bring in Iz Harris, your business partner, your wife, your mastermind. So Iz, if you want to come on in. All right, Iz, I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited about it too. It's been a while since I've been on a podcast.
I want to bring it back to you guys in this story that I heard when you bought your first camera.
Wow.
You did your research.
You did your research here, yeah.
Did you guys sell your blood to buy your first camera?
Yeah, some context is needed.
Sold.
So we were in college. We were married way young, in our early 20s.
Yeah.
And we wanted to become wedding photographers. And so we bought a Canon 7D on eBay.
Yeah, this was before we were even considering video, which Johnny had years of experience.
Yeah,
in video,
but
we were like,
I wanted to get into
photography.
So I bought a Canon 7D, which also could shoot video.
Yeah.
And it was like the DSLR revolution was happening, and we didn't have the money. Like, we were like poor college kids.
We bought it on a credit card.
We bought it on a credit card.
Yeah.
And in our college town.
This isn't the only time we've done something
We've done 1,000
like,
versions of this, but in our college town, there was a plasma donation center, and you would go and get, I think, between
$30. You could get $30.
But if you do both arms, you could do 45. That's what it was. And so we'd get $90 between us.
And you could go once a week. And we went once a week. At this point, I didn't know I had an autoimmune condition. It's not that serious. It's hypothyroid. But like,
but you
I
should
didn't
not
know,
have been selling your blood.
It was so bad for me.
But we got our $90 and we paid the credit card off and we paid it off. But we had our Canon 7D and we learned how to shoot with it.
And it was a couple years later where we were like, again, laying in bed. And I think he was like looking through photos and I was like, we're a lot better at video. And I was saying, really, I was like, we're going to stop this photography thing. We're just okay at that. And he was like, yeah. And then it
really became
overnight.
video. But that story is symbolic, and it's so familiar to me now because over the 14 years we've been married, we have done that over and over and over again. We've put
We're
the cart
trying to
before the
stop.
horse.
Yeah.
We're trying to stop. We're like, this year we're like, okay, we've done it. Like
That's
now
it.
let's just cruise on this. But we like to put the cart before the horse, do something kind of reckless. And then again, it's that excited accountability, force ourselves to level up by putting ourselves in a situation that's like, oh, we have to deliver now. And we kind of get a buzz off of it.
I still use this. I'll say like, I'll get back to you Monday with a full proposal, you know, and I'm like, how the fuck am I going to do that? And then I do, because I have to. I think that like but we've done it on a grand scale and it's been messy. If you spoke to like our families, they'd say like, stop.
These people are crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the business of journalism and really YouTube in general. How do you guys think about brand deals and the content that you create, especially because it's news?
That's a hard one. We, like news has been funded for a good long while, are funded largely by advertisers, whether those be the little skip this ad, on YouTube, unless you have premium, or a sponsor. What is most important is that we can ethically get on board with that sponsor and our audience can as well. That's a continual conversation. We make mistakes, things come to light, we shift away, but we try really hard to vet who we're working with. The second thing that's crucial, and our agents really manage this very well, is that they have no editorial feedback on the crux of the piece and anything that's said in the piece outside of those 60 seconds. So any sponsor can give feedback to, you missed this talking point or you said it incorrectly. That's not what we do. But they can't say anything about, what we say about Elon.
I was surprised to see this video and you guys commenting on it. The video you made about China, and it was a creator who called out, World Economic Forum was a sponsor on that video. How do you think about sponsors that can also give you material to use in the video? Because I believe there's some things they gave for that video.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like what's the line there? And I also have to ask, commenting on a video about you is a whole nother,
that's a whole other can of worms. Yeah. And we've learned a lot since this, 3 or 4 years ago. I did this video with the World Economic Forum with the intent of they have really good research on this thing. I'm going to do that. They have budget to sponsor the video. Now, all these years later, I see that that's a conflict that just from a ethical perspective, that's a conflict that I wouldn't do today. And they didn't have any say editorially. I wrote my video, but the fact that they were giving me money, he
wrote his video, but then it did get uploaded to their, the script of it to their blog.
So it looked like they had written it.
Wrote the piece.
Totally. So there was some optics.
There
was just some novice errors that we made from an optics perspective. But even still, I think the idea of covering the research of an organization that's also giving you money, unless it's the Red Cross, but even then I would need to look at it. And especially the World Economic Forum, where there's a lot of very valid critique. It caused an issue, and I felt good about the story. I think the story holds water journalistically. I think the way I went about funding it, I wouldn't do today. And the critique of it came with a lot of editorializing that wasn't accurate. But the fact that I crossed that line to begin with is on me, and I take responsibility for it. There's a lot of versions of that happen that aren't actually good faith critique, and I don't entertain those. But this was a learning experience. We've had a few other learning experiences, and it's a line that we're always crossing. We're on the front lines of a new type of journalism. We have to build a business around it. We're doing it in this kind of influencer economy. So we're having to retrofit that into this very important thing called objective journalism that is not bought or sold by a corporation. How do we do that? And we're sort of learning and defining that. And when I go speak to journalism conferences and talk to journalism schools, that's the number one question, because the ethics
there's a lot of fear around it.
Are really, really sensitive.
Yeah. So needed to say, there would never be a sponsor on any of our channels that would be the supplier of the information that we're reporting on, or would be have a strong investment in some direction with where we'd lean, and they wouldn't touch it. So all of those things are the safeguards.
Is there a partnership that you said no to because it would have been a conflict of interest?
A lot of governmental, Dubai wants me to come cover the museum on the future or something. And I cover politics in the Middle East and UAE, I'm often critical of. And if I take a lot of money from the tourism board
Yeah.
of Dubai, then suddenly I'm in a
Governments are a hard
situation-
no, even
Governments-
their tourism boards. So you could see how that could be maybe a gray area.
Yeah.
We just don't want there to be anything that undermines the journalism that we're doing. That used to be where we made our money when we were doing more travel vlogging. It's definitely where I made my money, was tourism boards. Very, very different when I can't just say the skiing was lovely, and it truly was, like I need to say like there's some corrupt shit going on here, That's a different thing, and we don't want that funding to get in the way of that.
Yeah. So it is case by case in some ways. I think what gets trickier is foundations. We haven't really we're trying to expand from just corporations to like foundations, Bill and Melinda Gates, and those often comes with certain strings attached that are like ethically I'm on board with, fighting for maternal health or something. And so knowing where those lines are if and when we take money from like grants is another sort of gray area that we are going to have to define. And we may make mistakes. I hope we don't. We have pretty firm lines. We want to do good journalism. We're earnest in that. But we're also defining a brand new category of news and journalism. And that comes with an exploration of those lines.
And we're also people. Like, I do think sometimes that gets forgotten. That doesn't mean we're not responsible. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't have the resources to like figure these things out and really think hard before we do them. But we are like fallible. There are just errors that happen on our time that are truly unintentional. I think owning up to those if and when they happen, and then disclosure, always disclosing who is funding the piece, who comped travel, if that was the case. That should just be baseline across the board, probably on the platform period, but especially in journalism.
Yeah. I mean, you're also a business. I can only imagine with all the people you're hiring, like your overhead, like if you had to estimate what's a monthly overhead for
well over $100,000. Yeah, it's
a month.
Yeah,
of just like fixed costs, and like we have to make payroll, so that incentive is always there.
If he wants to do a field story, it just
exactly. Yeah.
What's the cost of a field story?
I mean,
$40,000 to $50,000.
Yeah, depending on if we bring the crew or whatever. If I go solo, it's a little different, but I think one of the important things of having as a partner really side by side, as opposed to a traditional like I'm the YouTuber and I'm the CEO, is that there is kind of a garden wall where actually I didn't know that number. Like I can kind of have this garden wall in like in a traditional where there's a newsroom in the business side. Those incentives are still there, but I can be in this space of trying to pursue the story.
Yeah,
and can be out
and
there
I do
kind of
think that's
fighting and
important.
defending that.
Any creator that works with us and for us can know whatever they want to know. I'm available. But when I was creating, it wasn't helpful if a brand came back and gave me like really specific like revenue like information, though now I would love to have it. It was really discouraging, and I didn't want to make again. It just made me anxious. And so I try to be careful about having a team that helps me make those calls and take in that information, and then where it's applicable and useful, reporting that back to the journalists we're working with.
Yeah, I mean, you've been a successful producer at Eater. You've had your own travel vlog channel, your own successful wedding videography business.
Yeah.
What would you say for people who can't find there is? Or, it's now become more common, like husband and wife duos, building creator businesses. Matt and Stephanie Patrick, Michelle Kari, Garrett Kennel.
Totally.
My wife is my COO, Amanda. Like, what would you say for people who aren't married to the business part? How do you find someone to do this?
That's a tough one.
I'd first say I'm so sorry. That's the worst. It's a really hard one to answer. I think don't be fooled. It is a marriage. You need to implicitly trust that person financially. You need to trust them in some capacity editorially, whether that's that they are not going to have influence and they understand it's not a creative role and that needs to be very explicit, or that you genuinely have trust in how they think about creative, or that they will approach it with humility to learn how you think about creative. What I was doing was very, very different than what I'm doing now. And I'm fully comfortable admitting that it's taken months and months and months and months of studying and learning to be able to speak the language that Johnny does so well on his channel. And I don't want to dilute that. I want to add to it, right? So you need someone who can meet you there, wherever that may be. And then energetically, they need to energize you. I can't remember who said this, but it it really caught me, like, I don't know, off guard. The idea that the people that work for you and that you work with, that you should feel that surge of energy from them and that like synergy. And I like that. You know, I guess it's putting to words what I've felt with some of my team members and especially my senior team members. So you need to have that. Also, you got to be like, and this is to all the creatives who are control freaks, like you have to be willing to say what you don't do well. And it's a lot. You don't do so much well. I don't do so much well, and I'm a CEO, and a lot of the stuff I don't do well is CEO stuff that I'm then hiring out, you know? I shouldn't be doing our quarterly financial reports. That would be a shit show, you know? And like, that's okay. I'm really good at taking them once they're in a pie graph and going like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Let's distribute funds this way. So really being able to say like, I'm not good at managing people. Maybe that's the case. I'm not good at growing people. I'm not good at really conveying vision. I feel it, but I don't know how to do it. I'm not good at hiring. I'm not good at firing. Like whatever it is, you have to be really willing to look in the mirror and be real about it, and then trust whoever you bring on.
Well, it's going to be different for every creator. I think that's the other exciting thing about this renaissance that's happening is everyone's creating their business in their own way. This is our model. It works. It's hard to give advice because we are one data point. And I think that, the way Cleo, who's our close friend, who's building a very comparable sort of type of business, the way that she's building it, who she will hire is very different than what I would need or what you would need, because she has different competencies and different sort of tolerances for different goals. And so I think what you're going to see is a lot of different services that pop up, outsourced services from management to financial and bookkeeping to all these things where I think that creators should identify what they don't do well and then survey the market. They may not need a right-hand person. They may actually need a suite of outsourced retainers, a CFO over here, a manager over here, whatever over here, and then like a COO over here. It's very flexible, and I don't think there's one size that fits all.
I also think I do want to say with the outsourcing, be careful. Like if you end up in a situation where you feel like they're not making it very, very clear how to work for you, and like you need to know all the things to get them to do their job, that's a red flag, and we've run into it. Yeah. The other thing is it doesn't need to be a C-suite executive that you're bringing on. Like bring on an operations like an administrator and then grow them, or bring on an assistant and grow them, bring on a production manager and grow them. Just find where I would hire smaller at first until you start to get what are the personality types that I work well with. And yeah, that's true. It's going to be different for every single person figuring out what you need and what you don't need. Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, finding somebody like on freelance who's maybe a bit more junior, and then like I say to our editors all the time, I'm like, I'm going to put you to gauntlet, but we're going to make some of the best pieces of work that hopefully will add to your portfolio. And I feel like a lot of people just look at like, oh, that person has done it. That's the paycheck. Let me get them on salary.
Yeah.
And they start burning out really quick.
They do. Yeah. Absolutely. And I also think like, I keep coming back to this, but like the power of not knowing, like that truly can be a superpower. Even in our work, I don't have a degree in international relations, but my ability to say like that thing you just said about Kurdistan made no sense to me. Helps them go back to fresh brain, go back to the drawing board and figure out how to explain that for the average audience. Same goes for running your own business as a creative. Like you don't need to know all of the things. You just need to bring people on that you really trust to not like co-opt them too much and to really share in with you the process of establishing systems or developing brand deals or whatever it is.
Yeah. When you're reaching out to folks, like to get them in your videos, you guys shared this like outreach message, because getting people to talk on camera can be really hard, especially for different topics. And I think it could be a superpower for any YouTuber watching, like thinking about, okay, this is a topic, I've pulled some visuals, but I need somebody to talk on camera. Yeah. Can you talk through like how you guys go about reaching out to folks to be on camera?
Access is a huge visual anchor for us in the sense that if we can get access to the Japanese military, and I can make a video called I Trained with the Japanese Military, that's a really powerful like framing for a video. So we spent 7 or 8 months in back and forth with the Japanese military. That's probably our most ambitious. I got access. I got to train with the Japanese military. It was awesome. Most of the time, you'll find that it's not that intense. We don't have to do this big formal thing. Oftentimes, experts want to talk, and especially if you're doing a topic that is kind of niche and there's some professor at some university that doesn't talk about this very often, they will be excited to jump on for 30 minutes. So you'll often find a warm room, especially if you have work that shows how you portray those experts, and you can say like, this is how I'm planning to use it.
Mm-hmm. Letting them know if it's going to be on camera or on background is just a etiquette thing that I think people forget. These experts are busy, and if they're on camera, that might appeal to them. If they're on camera, that might not appeal to them, but they should know.
That's a great detail.
This one's really formal because of Japanese culture, and we needed to approach it. It was kind of a cool experiment in that way.
Yeah, it's a whole letter.
Yeah, it's like a big thing. There's other ones where I think we're reaching out about deep or ocean mapping. Those are going to be a little bit more casual. Here's what we do. Yeah. I do think being concise, we're not always the best at that, but being concise is respectful to the time that people have available. And then what just complicates this, and I'd like you to speak to it, is like when you're reaching out, you may not be covering them fully you will cover them generously, but it's not going to be a puff piece.
Yeah.
So
that's the constant conflict with what we do is like, I'm going to report what I find, period. So the Japanese army obviously let me do this because they want me to show the strength of the Japanese army. That's why they let me in the door and gave me a uniform and did all this stuff. And yet the piece ended up being half showcase of Japanese military might. The second half was a big critique of how locals feel about this. And, I wish I could just show up and show a really amazing piece on the Japanese army with no critique. But I think what I had to do and what I hope they saw when they watched it is, this was generous. This wasn't a gotcha. He did this generously, but he also showed the other side, and it was balanced. And I hope that when I want to train with other militaries and do a similar thing, I hope when they watch that, they can see that I'm good faith and earnest. And I think people can sniff that out and see it in the work, not just in the proposal, but in the work that you do, which is ultimately going to be the decider of if they let you in the door.
Do you ever give them first look, like when you reach out to them?
No, ethically, that's just not like, I can't let them have any influence unless it's classified. Like if I go onto a submarine or something,
then we have to.
Then I can show them the footage I want to use, and they can say, hey, that control board you showed is classified. You have to blur it out or cut it. I will let that happen. But from an ethics, like my promise to my viewers, I'm going to go cover this and I'm going to show you what I found, period.
They see it when the audience sees it.
Yeah, they see it when the audience sees it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's just...
And sometimes we won't hear back for like a week and we're like, oh man, like, how are they going to feel about it? And especially like in this case, that's a little bit different because we were being critical. But say like our piece, we did a piece on misinformation, and we worked with this incredible expert who studies the brain and how it reacts to information. And she's just so brilliant. And then we just took it and we did the hard work, but also, the distilling. And we made it a much simpler explanation. Yeah. You never know how an expert is going to respond to that. Luckily, we got the email a week later and she was like, fantastic job. I love how you explained this. But that's where we feel the pressure, not that, they'll be like, this shined well on me, but like, did we get it right?
Yeah.
Did this really like this? You're so in the science. Did we do it justice? And those are moments that are a little tenuous and nerve-wracking.
Totally. Johnny, you once said about that you wish you could just shout to the rooftops about the mastermind that you really are. Tell me about like your day-to-day is, why you said that. Just I want to get into it because there's a lot behind that.
It's a weird thing. Having started the channel on my own, it was very scrappy and solo at first. And these days it's unrecognizable in terms of the amount that we publish, the depth of our ability to report, and then the business that we run. Mm-hmm. All of that is something that I had no competency to do on my own. Came into the business maybe a year or two after I sort of started. And she came in with just this other vision of like what it could be, not just the rigor of it and the creativity, but also the operations, the stuff that I kind of don't want to think about. And since then, we've built it into this very lovely organization that is full of great people who are unified around a vision, and that has an efficiency to it that is the only reason why, as a scrappy little organization, we're able to publish so often. So the reason why I want to scream it to the rooftops is because I'm the guy on camera. I kind of have this legacy of doing it all on my own, but more and more, it is this sort of thing that I cash in on, which is like the mastermind of Iz and what she's built around what I like to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's very nice. And same goes for the broader team. We have a really big team. And as Johnny mentioned earlier, so many of them touch these pieces. And I would even up the number that you said. I think probably anywhere from 8 to 14 people touch a single video. And it really is this incredible relay that we go through with several handoffs and an enormous amount of trust in each of the people that touch it. And my day-to-day varies. It's a lot of pen to paper brainstorming about how we can make this already efficient system more efficient. Maybe an hour about talking about one process that I'm not happy with how the workflow went.
Like what?
Let's say, we just revamped the way that we choose stories. And that was after years of me trying to put pen to paper to figure out what makes a good story and what makes a good story for Johnny more specifically and more importantly. And that there were a lot of factors there. One was there's so many good ideas. How many of them are visual? Another was for us to tell a story and for it to be authentic and also good, he has to care. Like it has to spark his interest. So I was coming in a little bit more like, how do I almost shield him from all of the suggestions? It's a lot of suggestions. Even dinner with my family, it's like 15 suggestions. Every single
videos.
Oh yeah,
everyone.
yeah. Everyone's pitching me all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's like every sentence, and it's part of it is fun because we're all so creatively amped behind what we're doing, and there's so many things to cover. Yeah. But almost every, segment of a conversation ends with that could be a video. And oftentimes they're right. But a lot of it shouldn't for us. So that could be a video for someone else, So looking at it from both of those angles, but also from how do we, without losing the heart of what we do and also the very organic value of what we do. I know these are trite words, but they really matter. How do we engineer a certain aspect of that to ensure the video has the best chance possible of doing well? One of those is making sure it's visual. One of those is making sure we have that visual hook. Is it relevant? Is there broad interest in this? Of course, does it spark Johnny's interest? So I spent probably collectively 100 hours thinking about that process and just talking and talking and talking. This is the value, some of it was pillow talk, of being married, but what is it? What drives you crazy when a story comes and you just can feel it's not it? Try to verbalize that. And
these are things I can't do on my own. It's a lot of shooting from the hip for me. It always has been. It's always been this really kind of from the gut feeling. As it's grown and as we've grown a business and we have to make payroll and we actually have to run a proper business, it's been really hard for me to articulate and codify my process. And so one of the benefits of having my life partner also be the business partner who also was a creator and understands this, who also has a business mind, she's able to sort of coax out some of this stuff from me and put it down into a document in a way that I'm I never thought of it that way. It feels a certain way in my brain. And so it's been really nice to have someone who gets me, gets the business, and can kind of marry those two.
Yeah, I was kind of laughing because we have this, I don't even know if this will land, but we pass this restaurant all the time that's called Tacos, Burritos, Pho, and More. And that is me. Even when I was running my own channel, I could not narrow into a thing. And so I've loved the ability. I think one of the most fun parts about being a CEO and then having access to producing and creative is that no day is the same. I think it's actually a very similar thing to what you love. And I say often to Johnny, I wouldn't want to sit in a story for that long. I would get bored and I would need to move on. And so that's kind of been a strength. There's also way less sexy things. For years, the color, if you go back and look, the color correction and treatment was very different from video to video. And my team now knows that I am on them, okay, no, that is not the color of Johnny's lips. You know, like let's look at his lips a little bit longer. And they're now used to that, but that's something that then I would meet with our production manager, Taryn, to talk through, like, what are the workflows that we can have in place so that I'm not thinking about this? Mm-hmm. Why am I leaving 15 notes on this? That sounds a little like bratty maybe, but it also is like, time matters, and I want time to be spent on us doing the best journalistic work we can do, and the most beautiful. Both of us are filmmakers first, and so we really want to be spending our energy there. And then I think one of the really nice things about that, because it would be a lot to do for one person, right? Mm-hmm. Even if that person is reaching millions of people on a weekly basis, so many of these things, if not all of these things, translate over to our new channels and how we run them. And so it almost feels like I'm doing the same work for like way more bang for my buck, which is very energizing as well.
Yeah. The words process and systems, I feel like, can get so abstract, especially for creators who are still like doing it themselves, or maybe they have one other person. Like, what does that mean? Like, is that a doc? Like for us, it's like if we have to do something like twice or repeat it, we try to have like best practice or templates. So you may have seen that we've officially launched our new merch line, and we've been building the site on Shopify, who sponsored this video. Not only is Shopify the commerce platform to help you start, grow, and manage your business, but it also makes it easy with their drag and drop store editor, marketing tools, and backend to oversee your operations. And the most magical part, well, it's a new feature called Shopify Magic, which is an AI tool that helps you clean up your product photos, change the backgrounds, write product descriptions, and so much more. And because we have an international audience, I can also use Shopify's managed markets to help handle local payment methods, duties, tax compliance, customs pre-clearance, and all that other stressful part that comes with international sales. So I could get back to focusing on what I do best, creating videos like these. So if you're thinking about launching your idea or taking your business to the next level, sign up below with a free trial at shopify.com/Youshaei and join many of the world's biggest brands, entrepreneurs, and creators who are using Shopify as well. That link again is shopify.com/Youshaei, or click the link below in the description. All right, now back to the video. It's like,
exactly.
What is it? A checklist of like this color must look like this. Like this story must have these like 5 aspects. Like what?
In my dream world, it would be. In my dream world, I mean, I tell my team members all the time, like, carry around a checklist, work off of a checklist. Like, do not trust your brain to be the best. I don't trust my brain. You shouldn't trust your brain. Like, there's very, very smart ways that we can organize ourselves to stick to the same merits of what we're making, the same visual, cohesion and quality. Just in a single production for you're touching on probably 1,000 different things, truly. And so how is one brain going to keep track of that? They're not. So yes, it's a lot of checklists. You'll notice that at the top of our scripts, there's a checklist for the story or research producer to see to. It's also, the docs that you're seeing, a pitch doc, a script. Johnny's been incredible about setting up some of those systems. How do I make sure that they are accessible and used consistently?
We also have a Bible.
We have a Bible.
We call it the Bible.
It's a little sacrilegious.
It's all of our post-production.
Yeah.
It's all of our production stuff in a Notion database that basically it's almost like a support document. Like you can search it. It's by pre-production, production, and post, and animation. So all of our map sort of color guides and kind of best practices are documented there. In addition to some like writing tips and kind of voice, like I'll do little tutorials where I'll screen record myself.
Tutorial just for the team.
Yeah, just for the team.
There's also, like, right now I have our 2 senior video producers creating a full new entry to the Bible that will be very firm definitions on what each cut has and what they look like and why.
Yeah.
I think the why is important.
Yeah. What are the different cuts that it goes through?
We have
shame.
Shame is the first one, and
Shame
it's
is the
called
first one.
that because it's too shameful to show anyone.
No one
But
wants
you
to ever
have
show
to.
it.
Yeah.
You have to, because if you hold on to it, that preciousness, it doesn't serve the story and it doesn't serve the audience. So that's where Johnny and I can come in and go, ooh, we got that segment wrong, or oh man, this music's just not working, or it's just really rough.
It's pared down. It doesn't have any visuals. It's just music and
I almost
pacing.
always
of
watch
the
them at
voice.
2 times speed. Like I'm just getting a sense of like where are we going.
You already record talking head for that?
Yeah.
Or like,
Yeah.
So the shame draft is basically the scaffold of the whole thing. And we really do emphasize, like, it's a shame draft because you don't want, it's not a video
Some of
yet.
our
It's just words.
editors like get too fancy and we have to call them out and be like,
It's a shame.
And then there's a rough, and then there's a fine, and then very cleverly there's a fine too, because we realized we needed more time between that and what we're going to be publishing. And then there's a pub cut. And at every single stage, shame, there's a bit less notes because it would be kind of wild for me to, or Johnny, or one of our senior video producers to leave 100. But in most every cut, you're going to get over 100 different notes.
I'm looking at this frame screenshot that you shared with me that has 132 notes for 25 minutes.
Yeah. And that's standard.
That doesn't count. I also went into the edit on this one because it's one I really care about and left some specific notes as markers. And this is purely us obsessing the details. Like, that is one of our core principles.
It is.
It is one of the reasons the videos turn out. And it's one of the reasons it takes 4 months to make these things.
And we're both editors, so we speak this language. To step outside of it is not easy. And also to ensure that like the work reflects us and what we're trying to make, the 132 notes is necessary. It can be devastating for a new editor on the team, I won't lie. And I've had to really make sure that my post producers understand, and I genuinely mean this, that me leaving 132 notes on, I think this was maybe a rough or even a fine, is a sign of respect for that editor. I know where they can get that. This is one of our best editors, and he's going to make this thing, I am going to say that word, he's going to make this thing fucking sing, and I've seen him do it over and over and over again. But I also know that when you're sitting in that edit, you don't have fresh brain perspective. You don't know, like, you lose sight. You're almost just in this like vortex, and that vortex can make magic, but it also can make you blind to really where you need to go.
Yeah.
So we see this as a collaborative effort, and it's very important to me, unless I say this wasn't where we needed it to be, that our editors trust that it was, and we're going to get it further.
Oh, I've never felt more seen than looking at, because I leave the same amount of notes for our editors, and it's because I believe in them, and it's because we vet them, especially as we're growing now. We gotta, like, it's like that level of detail matters.
Absolutely.
What is the process of like doing that week over week? Because I got to be honest, like one thing like we struggle with, I think a lot of other creators struggle with, is like being a perfectionist with the edits. To see the level of quality for your videos, I mean, have you guys ever shipped something that you felt like was not perfect, or like
always?
Yeah.
It's
probably every week when we publish.
It's there. That's a hard question, because we are perfectionists. We could push it forever.
I don't think we are. We're actually quite messy, kind of haphazard people in our lives. Like, I'm more orderly than you.
That's true.
Johnny is everywhere at all times, and I love that about him. And so part of me coming in is making sure there's systems in place that like you can get really hyper fixated in a beautiful way on a certain part of the story. Let's make sure everything has that. I think it was Cyprus that we published, and we got a text from a colleague that like we really, really respect, and she's so lovely and sends us a lot of very kind messages as well. Joss Fong, who just launched a channel called Howtown, and she texted and she was like, I saw you didn't get to all of the color correction. And it was spot on. We had missed several frames. And this is a full documentary that we had invested thousands of dollars to make. It really goes to like the principle that said way too much, which is that perfection is the enemy of good enough. The
or is
industry,
this another form of procrastination?
Yeah, and I believe that too.
The other thing.
I don't think, I watch a lot of people launch on the platform. Most of them are going to be too precious to make it. And that's all it comes down to. It's not talent, it's not skill, it's not smarts, it's not post-production chops. It is that they can't ship something. And so we believe in shipping often, and we believe that we'll get better. I also am conscious, as the person running the company, that the industry is changing very quickly. And for us to stay on the forefront of journalism on the platform, we have to be delivering products and then improving on those. And there's nothing better for improvement than comments from people that think you could have changed things, and then we try to do that.
I would say there's two red lines that we have to make sure we're not crossing, or there's two kind of thresholds that we have to pass. One is factual. We need to make sure that all of our facts are watertight, and we publish a bibliography on all of our sources. Every assertion is time coded with the source to make sure that, and that keeps us honest. And we've had issues in the past where we haven't held ourselves to that standard.
Which is why we built out that system.
So that's one factual. The other that I need the edit to get to is that sense of bespoke craft. It needs to have craft. And that starts to happen around Fine Cut, where I'm like, this has craft. You feel it. You feel the magic of the music and the pacing. If we're there, the rest is the cherry on top. And I do want the sound to be mixed properly. I do want the color correction to be good. But if we are factually and people are feeling stuff when they're watching and they're learning, then like, I think we're way more comfortable shipping.
I should also say, like, now something wouldn't be published with color correction issues or typos. Part of the, like, you know, systems aren't sexy, but they really do help you do the sexy stuff more. And like, part of having the systems that we have, it's allowed us then to invest more time because we're just more efficient. We also now have senior video producers that I referenced. They're leaving notes on cuts, and for a year they were leaving notes that we read every single one, and we left them notes on their notes. And we said, oh, you missed this place. Oh, your tone, you got to be encouraging. You got to speak in we. You got to make the editor feel seen. They've been in this and they're tired, you know. We really tried to grow them. And now, particularly for certain videos that are a bit more easily done independent.
You're talking about notes to manage other like editors. As you guys
so we have we have post producers that function as what we call SVPs, senior video producers, and they now oversee cuts. Not all. You know, we're still going to take something like this is a field story in Georgia. Like, we're going to senior video produce it, right? But they're looking at every logistical thing that needs to happen. Did the animation get done? Are the style frames in? Do we, you know, is the typeface correct? And so on.
And
but they're also leaving notes.
Yeah.
They're doing exactly
getting
this.
it to a fine cut, and then we come in.
And you guys come in.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't.
And there's a new, and just in the past few months, it's at the point where we've let a video publish where we didn't leave a single note, which was like a huge celebration. Like, it was a big moment. It was one of our maps planers.
And it was big for them too.
It was a huge
We're still
moment.
watching it, you know, but there were months and months and months of us leaving notes on their notes, you know, on Slack, and then they grew up to be able to do this.
Yeah. That's so powerful. What does the team look like now? Like, org chart, different roles, just like quick high level.
Yeah.
Org chart.
Yeah.
Another thing that I put pen to paper on for like hours, because this is something that, like, when he came in, I was like, I want a firm org chart. And then months later, I was like, we can't have one. We don't have enough of a management structure in place to like really have what I want to see on a wall. I think that's part of our strength, that we've run scrappily and we've allowed that creatively. But I also want to run a real business where people feel taken care of and guided and like they're on the same page with the mission. So we have like 16 full-time employees. 2 of those are heads of content on their own channels. And then they're each staffed with 1 to 2 people. And then we have probably 10 to 15 contractors that we're working with. And those contractors are people we're working with pretty much on a weekly basis. We're in near constant.
And they're editors and animators mostly. Yeah.
Some are research producers. Yeah. And then within the company, this year has been a big year of me. And I would give this advice to anyone, taking a deep, hard look at both what I don't want to do and what I don't do well, and then hiring for it. Taryn, our production manager, she's fantastic about keeping everything just on pace, and she's really good with the team in terms of like their own time management and overseeing that. I think the next steps are going to be someone who we really trust from a producer standpoint, who just shares our brain somehow. They've got to be out there, but someone who can come on, and when they make a call, we go, whoa, like, I maybe wouldn't have even thought of that, and that's fucking brilliant. That would be the dream. So trying to scale each of the pods, but we have post-production, we got pre-production, we have a operational team, and then
we outsource.
The goal is that those start to work up a chain so that I, like I did in January, don't have, and this is not something to be proud of, it's not even a humble brag, it's truly stupid, don't have 15 direct reports. That is no way to run a company, and it's no way to take care of your people. So now I have less, and my goal is that, in 6 months I have 5.
Yeah.
And those are all senior team members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for financial and legal and all these things, we sort of have outsourced agencies that we retain to help us with
That's right.
bookkeeping and all of that.
So we do what's called an outsourced CFO. Didn't know that existed. It exists. It's a really cool thing. We have our agents who help us get deals. So it's a lot of different people that we're interacting with on a weekly basis.
And I asked that because so many creators, like, they could barely see beyond like hiring a few people.
Yeah.
And like, I find that burnout and hiring go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have a lot of these
I agree.
processes, it just, can lead to like wanting to take retirement time, or like,
Absolutely.
wanting to leave like the platform, like a lot of we've seen YouTubers doing. I know you guys have this grand mission to become the home of the best independent video journalism on the internet. You've said this a few times before. How do you guys plan on doing that? I see you're spinning up new channels like Search Party. All the stuff you're balancing seems like so overwhelming already. Like, why do more, and how are you going to do that?
It came a couple years ago when we realized we started to scale the production. It became so efficient once Iz came in. We could publish like every week, and we had 17 videos in the pipeline. And we're like, let's just keep scaling this.
Which is too many.
Too many. It was too many. And we realized, like,
You guys have 17 videos.
We did
at this point.
time. We have
Right now we
6
have
to 10 to 13.
Yeah, we have a lot, just always kind of on simmer. We kind of hit our ceiling to the point where it started to like really take a toll on like, how am I keeping track of 17 videos? And I was sort of touching them in all these precision points. And we realized the product that we can bottle here isn't my brain. Like I do it differently every time I want a new art direction. The thing that actually is brilliant about this organization is what is built. That's what's scalable. Not to mention, we believe we have something special. We believe that we are approaching journalism in a new way, and we could be a home for other journalists who are intimidated by YouTube, intimidated by starting their own channel, being business operators and journalists at the same time, to bridge that gap and facilitate a network of channels that we can run under this sort of ethos of efficient operation. And so that's sort of where this idea was born, of being a network of journalistic channels all run by a head of content, a leader of that channel who's on camera, they're
Who is the
creators,
host,
but they don't have to think about operations and bookkeeping and deals.
Yeah.
They just make and they build.
Yeah.
And
They're also salaried and have benefits like any other full-time member of the team. So, and then there's a generous rev share over time that scales as the channel grows. So that's the formula that we're working with each of these.
So you guys are starting a network. I guess it's already started because Search
Yes.
Party.
Yep, Search
And
Party.
Second
We're
channel.
launching our second one.
We're launching our third one.
Third one.
In November. It will be run by Christoph, who has made incredible videos at Vox, including a video about Sahara circles that is just phenomenal. His brain is so fun. And he'll be launching in November. He just started, and he is like in a rabbit hole of research on
What's the niche?
on stories.
It's going to be open source intel. So he's going to be scouring Google Maps and public records to dive into different internet mysteries, current events, but using basically a UI, an internet UI, to guide the viewer through his methodology. So
And
it's like
show
open
how
source
it's done.
journalism.
So the journalism is about what he's discovering, but it's also about how to do the journalism, which I think is really exciting for people who are trying to learn.
And that's his idea. The whole concept is that in the same way that my channel is my brain kind of thinking out loud and living out loud, Sam with Search Party, that's his methodology. It's his style of explanation, and he's able to lean into that. Christoph's going to be able to do
good
that.
at it.
He's
Yeah.
so good at it.
Yeah.
And that's a belief that we have that underpins this network, is a creator-led journalistic brand is going to be the most authentic. It's what people want, as opposed to a top-down brand that is one name and everyone sort of follows that voice.
And creatively, like in the actual back end, right? Like, how are we working together? We are working as collaborators. We're story editing each other's pieces. We're pitching to one another. We're looking at each other's thumbnails. We're looking at each other's cuts, and we're learning from one another. Bringing Sam on was like, yes, fantastic for what we're trying to grow. And also it's made us so much better. I think that
my channel better.
I think the same thing is going to be said of bringing Christoph on. we see like journalism is in a precarious state, even just with like a lot of companies that are going under, a lot of layoffs, and also the incentives of media that we see today on network television, right? And also people are shifting in the way that they want to receive news, in the way that they want to experience news. And I think having these topics explained to them where we don't skip over the foundational knowledge, we don't skip over the broader context. We really try to, we call it holding the viewer's hand, but we try to hold their hand throughout the piece so that by the end, they have not a bunch of facts, not a bunch of dates, not a bunch of names. That's not useful. They have a keen understanding of the why, you know? And so that is what we're trying to scale with these creators. And I don't think it would be right for it to be continually scaled through one person. There's additional perspectives and ideas and lived experiences that we want to create platforms for. And we would love to be the home of those.
Yeah.
Which is why we've changed the name of this broad thing from By Harris to New Press. New Press is the kind of holdco of this network of channels. And to us, that sort of speaks of like the new way of publishing, the new way of doing rigorous journalism in this creator-led environment that we believe is the future.
Yeah. I think it's the first time you guys have talked about that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is sort of this is like
Palms
hot
are
off
sweaty.
the press. Yeah. And it's exciting because like what got us into this is like, we like to make stuff. We're filmmakers. We're starting to catch the glimmer of like, oh no, this could actually be a home that could scale, that could bottle this ethos up and allow other creators to have a voice and to have the operations just be smooth and clean for them so that they don't have to think about that. Because it's hard. Building a business on YouTube is hard. And doing journalism is hard.
Yeah.
And so we want to take one of those off of the plate of these journalists.
They're already grappling with so many different things within the journalism they're doing.
And is it so? It's almost like a modern Condé Nast.
It
where
kind of is.
You have a lot of different verticals. That's the goal. And
Yep.
then you bring on like a talent or a subject matter expert. They get a salary. And it sounds like a rev share is the business model.
That's right.
But then you guys have like almost like the main like central operations.
Yes.
You share all the stuff that you learned, the Bible.
Under the
Yeah.
hood, it's all the same organization.
And they're contributing to it as well. You know, they're shaping the organization as we go. It's a little bit different in that it's very creator first.
Yeah.
So our belief is that people are going to want to receive their news from creators that they trust. So instead of maybe it being several people contributing to a vertical and the articles within that vertical, this is creator first journalism.
Yeah.
So whether they're on camera or voiceovered, it is their channel.
Yeah. It's about the anchor, not the news network.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the
And
goal.
it's about the person's voice and their style, which is it's gonna take a million different forms. We're not gonna try to control the editorial tone. We're gonna make sure it's factual and beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's going to be their minds expressed out loud on their channel.
Yeah, there's ethics that each of us come on board and we say, okay, these are the ethics of the journalism we're doing. Handshake, and it's a brainstorm. Do you feel that? Why do you feel that? I don't feel that. Okay, well then why don't we tweak the words so that it's this, Okay, does that capture what all of us want to do here? Yes. All right, we now have our rubric. This is the thing that we just continually look back to and decide,
The form it
are we on
takes.
track? Because I'm sure you come up against this.
Yep.
We're moving quick.
Yep.
And we need to move quick, right? Because it's all changing and it's shifting, and we want to be on the forefront of that. We want to be making journalism that really matters and reaches people. How to do that efficiently and quickly without sacrificing the core values and the ethics behind what we do, that's a delicate day-to-day balance that both of us are minding and taking very seriously. And there are stories that we're just not telling because they're too voyeuristic, or they, we don't feel like we have the expertise. It's a story we may have told 2 years ago, but now Cleo should do that story. We shouldn't do that story, And so really trying to take seriously what we do best and what makes us uniquely good storytellers, Christoph a uniquely good storyteller, Sam, and so on.
I just think you guys are raising the bar and doing it together and doing it for YouTubers everywhere. So thank you for taking the time.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank you.
great
This was
discussion.
a blast. I love your work, by the way. I was
you.
really excited to
Thank
get
you.
to come on here.
Yeah, this
And
is
we wouldn't
great.
be able to do it without the team. I just want that to be so clear. They're so solid and
Absolutely.
awesome and fun to work with. And we're really, really grateful that they care about doing what we're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It means the world you guys took the time. Thank you guys.
Thanks
All
for
right.
having us.